I'm very, very glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I saw the list of people that come here, and all my friends as well. So it's fantastic to see and think about transport today. I suppose you all are engineers or interested in transport. Is that fair to say? So I hope today I'm gonna bring something completely new that you have never considered before, because I'm also an engineer, and I work in one of the best engineering universities in the world, which is TU Delft. But I did my PhD in psychology. And the reason why I did my PhD in psychology is because I realized that engineering was just not enough anymore. There was something else that I needed to consider for my research, and that I thought was important in order to advance the field. And that's something that I'm gonna call human factors, and I'm gonna talk about it and teach you a few tricks to think about it. I don't expect you here to end up becoming a human factors engineer, but at least to know that exists and know that can be a very useful tool for your work in the future, in academia, or even in industry, because human factors is a big, big issue nowadays. Okay. So I prepare, we have 3 hours, so I'm gonna do this very dynamic, I think. And the reason is because we have a presentation, but there will be an activity and a break, and we're going to talk about different things as well. So I have bring 3 main questions for my first part of the presentation, which is I'm going to explain what is human factors, because you probably will read about it during your careers or listen about it. So I want you to know what it is, so you know. But also how to account for it and how to use it to design safe systems, and particularly design systems that don't cause harm. And remember, harm is not just being injured on the road. Harm could be being scared or not wanting to use transit, for instance. Because, and this is where we start my presentation, transport is very important for everything in our lives. You know, if I want to go to the movies, for instance, we need to take some transit infrastructure. Walk in there, get a taxi. If I want to have some food, if I want to come to study, we all engage with the transport system all the time. And even if we don't want to engage, we want to stay home and do nothing, we still need to have all those services around that are transporting things around. So, and that's what I tell everyone, that you should all care about transport, because our lives depend on it, and so many deep levels, right? And I think that's was very important to consider, and that's what I really like to do research in transport, because we all have something to say about it. Are you all happy about your transport systems? No? So that's why all we should care about it and participate in everything that we can in order to make it better, right? So the first thing that I'm going to start is, I started my journey thinking about transport as all of that, you know? It's the way we interact with those services and those products that is critical for us to maintaining quality of life. And those products could be, you know, a car. If a car is really bad, we will be upset all the time about it, right? So let's think about it for a second. So this used to be the planes in the 50s. I don't know if you can see very well there, but you could lay down and basically sleep and have a good time. And then this is what the planes look today. So raise your hand if you prefer A. I think it was very easy, right? Now, this is the future now. So the planes are going to look like this. So this is the A now, which is the current one. And then we have these new things that you can still put your feet there, I suppose. But you will be a little bit inside. So raise your hand if you prefer A. Half and half, I think. Okay, so what about if you take safety into account? What about if you remember that now we live in a safer world, and I hope there's going to be safer planes in the future, right? What happened when you consider that? Raise your hand if you prefer A again. Just so,
assuming the airplane is super stable, then I prefer A. But if I assume sometimes it falls, well,
no, this is safety record. This is like how many times you're gonna reach your place. So you all like the comfort, right? if you have the same level of safety anyway? And I think that's the complexity of why human factor is so important, because as an engineer, let me tell you, you can design the best things in the world, but if people don't want to use them because they don't feel like, it's not going to make a big difference, and people will not use your systems. And I think that's the most important lesson of why human factor is important, because you are designing things for people that will serve people and will serve industries. So it is very important to remember, and particularly safety is also an important criteria for the design of systems, okay? So just a very simple exercise of just thinking about what do you choose or what you don't choose, you will learn and see how it's sometimes irrational, you know? Somebody raise your hand and say, I prefer the old planes anyway. Because humans are not always that consistent. I think that's what I was so interested. Designing an algorithm is very easy because it's just one. Trying to design a model that covers everyone, that's actually more complex. Okay, let's talk about safety again. I'm sure you talked about it before, but I will remember everyone. You know, transport is a big issue as well for health. Lots of people die every year, particularly in low and middle-income countries. And we work in transport safety not just because of this 1.35 million, although it's a good reason for, but also there are so many other issues that comes with that. And we don't talk about it that often, but there is sustainability problems. There are non-fatal injuries that are usually now counted well in this 1.35 consequences, pain. So it is very important that safety is a big issue nowadays in the world, and as such, we need to worry about it. But let's continue here. Another aspect that usually gets lost in between the cracks of designing systems is that we always assume that all individuals are the same. And that's not a right assumption. Indeed, the average is not real, really. Because the majority of us has some sort of disability or some sort of situation that doesn't allow us to operate the same in all circumstances. We have a responsibility as well as an engineers, because we, or practitioners, because we design systems and policies that will affect everyone. So I really want to encourage everyone to think always about those differences. Those things that make us unique are very important to consider in policy making as well, and even development. And particularly in research, I think a lot of researchers make so many assumptions. You have no idea how many assumptions people do. That doesn't really fit for everyone. And I spend a lot of time on my work trying to think about how to measure better, how to develop better systems. And look at this case here of this woman on the wheelchair, you know, it's hard to access. But something else that I wanted to let you know is there is a thing called intersectionality as well, which means that a lot of people have many things that make them vulnerable. And that includes, for example, women feel less safe and has less outcomes as well, less safety outcomes than men has. But if you also are a low-income person or have a disability, you are in a lot of trouble nowadays. And I think it's important to also bring the perspective that vulnerability doesn't come just from one identity, it comes from multiple things at the same time. So when we are modeling things, it's not just like, okay, young people are more likely to die in this crash. No, it's look at those intersections and kind of correlations that exist in there, because there is so many other levels of vulnerability to think and discuss. Now, you will see why all of this is important. Let's play an activity. So why human factors can help us. Make a mess there. Okay, let's do another quick test here. And why human factors can help us to think about this issue. So this was Brisbane. I was in Australia, by the way. I did my PhD in Australia. And the University of Queensland was here in the city center. And there was this hotel there. So one day I was having dinner in this restaurant. And I needed to go to this hotel here. So there was a beautiful bridge here because there's a river. This is a river. And there was another bridge here. So just on that basis, this is the river. And then in the option one, which was the red one, there was this bridge. That was 10 minutes walk. Then there was a beautiful park walk. And then I can reach the hotel. The option two, I couldn't walk because it was far away. So I needed to take a Uber. it was an electric vehicle, so it was environmentally friendly. And that means I needed to, do the booking and stuff. That is 10 minutes anyway. And then have the 10 minutes and then reach the hotel. Let's look at the map again. So you can see it was a short walk here, pedestrian only, easy. But then if I take the Uber, I need to go to the main road, cross here, and then the car will take me to the hotel, right? Okay. Raise your hand if you prefer option 2. Why? Please, it was a question.
Because taking Uber would be more convenient rather than walking.
You don't like to walk? Okay, that's fine. That's why we have the 2 options, right? So all the rest will walk. Somebody wants to tell me why? Please.
Takes less time.
Huh?
Takes less time.
Is this time? Oh, yeah, it's true. You will be faster. I mean, a little bit of exercise is good too, right? I suppose. Okay, that was during the day. Now, I'm gonna change the question a little bit. Got dark. So it's a shame you cannot see, but actually it's a very nice picture. So Brisbane is a very beautiful city, and this is how the park looks at nighttime. During the day it's nice. It's a lot of trees, and it's Australia, so there are snakes and stuff like that. But at nighttime it looks a bit darker here, and the reason is because we have a great. It was not great. It was a mayor, and he was actually quite bad. And he decided that this was a good idea. He said, like, oh, let's make the park a little bit romantic for everyone. And he put this purple light there, and the rest was super dark. And I was like, could be better. Raise your hand if you prefer 2 now that it's nighttime. Why? Please.
I don't like purple light.
Okay.
It's very scary.
Okay, it's scary. What else? Any comments? Come on, anyone else? I saw Nicole raise your hand as well. Why you?
During the night time, it's not safe to walk, right? In the dark. But the safety rate is definitely higher
Yeah,
on a personal safety issue.
yeah. By the way, there was a time when I never thought about it, and I realized that, I'm quite big, so I'm not going to be easily attacked. But I realized some people actually was thinking about it later in my research. What about if I tell you the following? What about if I tell you that this is the stats online, that there were 20 incidents of harassment and assault in the last month in the park in Australia? What about if I tell you as well that electric vehicles are linked with child labor in Africa and are destroying water sources in Chile, for instance? So you have an option here that is electric vehicle, which great technology, but it has a lot of issues. And you know the stats of crime here. Now, I'm going to ask the question again. Which route do you choose? Raise your hand if you choose option 2. So everyone is walking. Raise your hand if you choose option 1. Okay, nobody's gonna. You need to get to the hotel anyway. Okay, please, somebody comment. What's happening? What's going on?
So if you choose option 1,
Mhm.
we are facing a risk, right?
I mean, everywhere. Every time you leave bed, you are, even in bed, you're probably facing risk. Yeah. You're facing risk now.
If we take option 2, then is that something that we are leveraging those labels?
Okay. All answers are valid, right? Any comments here on this side? The other side? I haven't heard anyone.
Well, I'll be choosing the option 2 generally.
Why?
Well, because, you know, in the nighttime or sometimes security might be issue, but if in case I want to have some kind of exercise after my dinner, then gonna choose option 1, but otherwise generally will choose option 2.
Okay. So you don't care about a vehicle be electric?
Electric? I don't think so.
That's fine. Yeah, and we all are making this type of choices all the time, by the way. So it's not just here in this lecture, you know. Humans are walking around, making choices, winning and losing, and that's a very important thing to consider because all those travel behavior surveys are quite incomplete. They're missing a lot of things happening. And that's what I really have grown a bit bitter with transport engineering as a science itself because it's people that still don't recognize the value that sciences like human factors and psychology offer to this because humans are complex and choices are not that clear. And I think this is a good example for you to start thinking about all those complexities because try to model that, trying to predict what people are going to do, especially in a world today where there is so much complexity, right? Cool. So just to close up this activity, I want you to also think about what it means that because, for example, safety up here, people were worried about safety at nighttime. So of course, you know, perceived security risk if you start perceiving danger from being harassed or robbed, which could happen, that means that you're going to take less public transport because you're going to walk less. You're also going to walk less, which means that you will have less opportunity to do exercise, which is not good for health systems. But also we're going to have, we want people to walk more, active travel, in order to have more sustainability and equity. We also want more public transport use to improve sustainability because the world needs it, right? Clearly there is a lot of challenges. And we know by research that the most safe way of travel is public transport. There's no it's a textbook thing. So if people are not taking public transport because they're scared of walking, we are not going to have those safety benefits that we want in our communities, right? We don't want the sustainability benefits that we need as a planet as well. So issues like sexual harassment, for instance, that seems to be so far away from transport are very connected to transport, even if policymakers don't want to accept it, because policy issues are complex and human issues require looking at that complexity. And just because they are complex doesn't mean they're complicated. It's just that we need the expertise and the acknowledgement of those issues. So things like security can have a big influence on transport systems. You can develop the best system that you have in public transport. If people are scared, they will not use it. And I think that's the main lesson that I want for today. So human factors will help you to reflect about that. And it will help you to achieve sustainability because you will understand what humans think and how they behave. Okay? Quick caution. I know that we live in a world of technology, and we're thinking, okay, technology is going to save all of us, and that's nice. But I also want you to reflect about the fact that people can still misuse technology. Technology is not just perfect itself. It depends on how it's used and how it can be misused as well. So things like, who remember this? Pokemon Go? Who played that? Raise your hand. I mean, that's going to feel old. No one has played that? Are you embarrassed? Okay. Okay, but you know what it is, right? At least, yeah. Okay. Nobody played, but everybody knows what it is. So when it appears, suddenly people realize that you can drive and play, and then you can capture more Pokemons and get more Pokeballs, etc. That was a really bad thing to happen because the whole point of the game was to walk and build community and go outside. But as soon as that happened, the company that developed the game developed this alert, right? Which is, don't do it when driving. What's the point? So that means that it's possible to do things. Even if you develop technology after, you can still intervene and try to make it a bit better. And I wish that this is a good example of what it should happen. When we, as engineers, we need to think about the consequences of our designs and how not just finish it, but also how it's going to be used and potentially embedded into tools that help us to adapt and be resilient to that change. So it happens here, very simple, a software and then an update, and it was developed immediately. And what about the future? And a lot of people, particularly in TU Delft, that is big in robotics, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, well, you know, we're going to remove humans from the system. No, you are not. That's ridiculous. Because there will be still humans there looking at these older screens and missing stuff and interacting with robots in real life. I have a video here to show you. So a couple of things about the video. I want you to notice how people start interacting with them and talking. And you know, if the robots say thank you to them, they feel so happy about it. So they can, yeah. I mean, these also are delivery robots. So they're part of the supply chain, right? They have a role to play and they've been proposed in many countries. But the point that I want to make here is humans are going to still be interacting with them. Doesn't matter what you do, how beautiful is your robot and your algorithm, there is always human interaction. So that story of human error is the cause of whatever percentage of crashes and humans are going to be removed and everything will be safe is fake. That's not true. Indeed, you can see here there will be a lot of interaction issues in the future. And that's why more than ever, human factors is going to be alive. OK, let's move to the next one. OK, that was the first part. Any comments? Any thoughts, reflections, complaints? Probably, yes. Yeah, it's Spanish. That's a good spot there. I was very asleep last night. Next.
What exactly human experience? Is it like a human factor? Or what is it? How is it considered human experience?
Human experience? Yeah, of course. I mean, because experience is the things that we've done before, right? So all our experiences interacting with the system also build our understanding of the system. And we create mental models, right? So as engineers, we need to make sure that people are developing the right mental model. I'll give you some examples in later. But basically, if you have the wrong mental model, you can make a mistake. For example, if you don't understand what direction to take on the road, you may miss the exit because it was not clear enough, for instance. So that way experience is so important because you will build that. But there was a point that you have taken the road so many times that it doesn't matter. You know where to go without looking at the road anymore because you learn already. So experience is part of human factors, right? The thing about experience and design of systems is recognize that there is a learning curve. People will not know the first time how to do it. And how people use the system at the beginning, it's going to be different to how they use it later. That's the main concern. Any other questions? OK. Let's move on to the next phase. Oh, this is far away. Wow. OK, how to account for human factors. Let's go and continue. So I bring two main ideas to account for human factors. And I really want you to think about those ideas a little bit. The first one. Let's start thinking about what determines behavior, because every problem of human factors is basically a problem of behavior. I'm going to clarify something. Behavior happens in two levels. It happens physically. So, for example, all of you that are playing with your computers now, that's physically. You are interacting with a computer, right? But also happens on a cognitive level, which is how I feel about the computer. If I'm getting bored from being here. So that happens cognitively. And that's something that we cannot see easily. You could with some strategies and technology, but behavior comes in two ways, OK? Now, this is a very nice definition of behavior, which is behavior is the result of complex interactions between personal factors and contextual factors. So there is things in us that make us behave in a way, but also the world is designed in a way that lead our behavior. And it's called a property. So it's something that emerged. Let's go there. Okay, what is a sociotechnical system? So we live in sociotechnical system because systems alone doesn't exist. You don't have just an algorithm. You have an algorithm in society, in a community full of people, right? So let's look at this example, for instance. This lady crossing the road and using the phone. So the behavior there is very clear, right? She is distracted. She's using the phone while crossing the road. By the way, do you guys think this is a problematic behavior?
Yes.
Why?
She's not paying attention.
Why does she need to pay attention, though? Look at where she's walking. She's walking on a zebra crossing. I don't know how it's called here, Nicole, but it's a designated area for pedestrians to cross, right? So why do you think she needs, what's wrong with that then?
If it's a green light for pedestrian, it's safe to walk, right?
But yeah, this is a pedestrian, so there should be priority at least. So you are allowed to walk there, and all the other things should wait. Basically, if you get crashed by a car here, using the phone or not, it's not going to save you. It has nothing to do with it. Please?
I think it depends on who. Like, it's not safe for the woman. Like, if an accident happens, it will be fault of the woman, like not of the car. Like, even she's walking in the area.
Yeah.
That is designated. He's using the phone, and it shouldn't. Like, for safety, she shouldn't have been using the phone.
Doesn't matter. You know, the phone is not making the car crash you. It shouldn't, at least. It's important to think about that issue because a lot of policy is written in a way that blames pedestrians. And in this case, she should be able to use the phone safely. There's nothing there that says, don't do it, you need to be protected. I mean, if it was a red light intersection where you need to look at the cars and, you know, etc. Now, if you live in a place where every car driver do not respect pedestrians, you probably should not use the phone because most likely you're going to be crashed. But that's a grown thing to do. And I think the blame should be always distributed to these people here in the car because they're the ones that have the weapon. That's the one that can kill the woman, right? She's walking on a pedestrian crossing. And I think when you look at that way, the world, so if you're based in a system, so this is a bad behavior because we know there's a risk there, right? But technically, the infrastructure is designed to give priority. She seems to be capable of doing. I mean, a potential disclosure, a potential issue would be that she falls and breaks her leg. So I don't want people to fall and break legs because that's bad for the health system. But there is no real reason here why she is being condemned to, to die because there's no problem. Anyway, so when we are on the road, crossing the road, there is a psychosocial environment. So of course, she's probably texting a friend of her family. So these friends are replying. As such, they are part of the behavior as well. There are tasks, so she needs to look at the roads and check if there's infrastructure and walk. She's doing that. There is organizational factor, so there is priority here because pedestrians should have priority on a zebra crossing at all times. There is a physical environment, easy. You know, there is roads and there is cars and also tools. There is the phone, but also the car. So we always live in socio-technical system. All our systems are embedded in society. So when I look at papers that talk about systems, I'm like, well, they're missing half of it because the other half is the community. So based on what we just discussed, this is what is happening in the world. Pedestrians to be fined $200 for looking at the phones. I was being very skeptical of these ones because, as I say, what exactly are they trying to do? They should just look at the cycle policy. You know, of course, there is moments where we shouldn't ask use the phone. But yeah, any thoughts, any comments? I'm happy for you to think about it as well. I have coffee.
I think the human being is animal of the habit. So typically you spend a lot of time on watching your
Yep.
cell phone, and while you're walking, it's highly likely that you're actually going to pass through a jaywalk street while you're walking and while looking at your cell phone. Even though you just cross the road, I think there's no problem with that. But if you just jaywalk like a 2-lane or something, while just watching your cell phone.
Okay, I love that point. It's a very, very good point. I will ask another question to follow up that one. It's a very, very nice point there. Who is the majority? Phone users or car drivers?
I think it depends because if you look at the kind of freeway, they're like car-oriented environments, so there's no people walking. But if you go to kind of neighborhood community level, there are a bunch of kind of 2-lane or narrow roads. People just easily can jaywalk without looking out.
Yep.
The people car coming.
But the question was, and that's a great point, right? That there is differences, of course, of people. But who is the majority? Car drivers or phone users?
On the road, car drivers also.
Are you sure?
The pedestrians are obviously outnumbered the car drivers.
Yes. And I think it's important. I mean, I don't have the clear answer on that one. But given that you mentioned that, I'm going to say the next part was, there is also a problem with phones, which is there's an addiction component. Now, it's been clinically proven. I'm going to acknowledge my student, Fetty, that she's still in Queensland, and she's doing her PhD with me. So she recently published a paper that I've been wanting to do for so long, but it's so hard to do, which is we really wanted to prove that there is a relationship between being addicted to the phone, but also using the phone on traffic environments or roads. So there could be pedestrians, cyclists, everyone. And she did found that all the studies, she took them together, pulled them, that there is a relationship. So if you have an addiction to technology, internet, phones, etc., call it as you call it, you are more likely to use it on transit, basically. I also did a study before, and we found, for instance, that problem users, which is those that clinically are addicted, are more likely to use the phone in illegal situations. This is handheld, but also, handheld is this one. You can see the big difference, right? Because handheld is very illegal. It's a big difference, but also hands-free. They're more likely to use it. So just to finish that makes the issue more complicated, right? Because it doesn't matter how much money they charge you. If you're addicted to it, your brain isn't going to work for it. So if we come back to the question of the policy, it's not going to solve the problem of the habit. Although I really like your perspective because it'll be different. Is, okay, if we normalize the behavior for everyone to use it all the time, so when they actually need to be protected, they will not be able to be protected because of the habit of doing it. And it's a very good point. I don't have an answer for that. But I was thinking on the sense that we all have the phones. It's easier to imagine a world without a car than without a phone. If you can disappear one technology today, which one will you disappear? That's a good question. Tell me, which one do you disappear? You disappear the cars?
Disappear the car and save that.
Save the phone? Okay. Like all the cars in the world versus all the phones in the world. Which one will disappear?
Well, it depends on the where you live, or kind of, for example, if you live in high-density environments, you need a car.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need a cell phone. But if you're living in rural areas, suburban areas, you definitely need a car. But probably.
No, but let's pretend that we're here in the world government, right? And that we can disappear. We need this. The algorithm found the solution. You know, save the world, cars or phones. Pick it. Which one do you choose? There is no car. It's probably a bicycle. Yeah. I mean, who else? Someone from this row. Yeah, she's the only one looking.
Probably the phones.
You will destroy the phones?
Like, we actually want to meet each other, right? We want to go somewhere.
Yeah, you can walk.
Walk for like a month.
I mean, there is a bicycle too, and trains. The trains are not going away. I mean, this is the type of question, right? I mean, when you develop policy, it's also looking at who is going to be affected, what is to be designed. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, right? Let me know if you have any questions. I'm trying to move this.
I mean, if you think about like the travel proposed, for example, commute,
Yeah.
or if you are trying to meet some people,
Mm-hmm.
and so you travel, but and if you just commute and work,
Mhm.
you don't have to meet people and you don't have to talk to anyone. So I think the cell phone would be able to replace or substitute your social activity. I mean,
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not a substitute. Yeah.
so I think if you are engaged in social activity by driving a car or calling someone with a cell phone,
Yeah.
I think that's something you can replace. But,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I don't have the answer. I've been researching that for a long time. So something that I really like to bring clarity as well is I also think that research has been unbiased. There have been this need of let's ban the phones are the worst, the phones are making people addictive. I have to confess, I love my phone. It's very useful. I can check my boarding pass there. I can call my mom. So many good things with that I was always worried that people were so biased in safety research about it. Phones are useful. It's one of the best technologies that exist. I don't drive, personally speaking. I don't want to. I've decided that if I want to teach transport, I should not drive. That would be really weird. But I don't need it. I realized that I don't need it to live. But I couldn't live without my phone because I became so attached to it. And I will say that if I fill the questionnaire, I may appear like a problem user because I spent a long time in it working, doing social media. But the world also requires it. Is that okay? Now, when we look at the interactions of us with the system, we also need to look at the benefits that it has. So, of course, having a car has performance, but walking also will produce health and well-being benefits. So it's looking at those two ways. And I really want you to think about our behavior is not just our behavior. It also depends on the context, right? The context is determining a lot of what we do and how we behave. That's psychology number one. Psychologists spend all their life thinking about what makes you behave in one way. Okay? Let's do that. Okay, an example to do this. Okay, there's a tool that is called the Rasmussen Risk Management Framework. I teach this and I love it. It's very useful to kind of bring that concept that our behavior is not ours. It's this framework here. So it basically says that all the actions that happen in the world, it has origin in, it's not government, it's really policy. So the policies that governs the world will influence our behavior. So, of course, there is a lot in between, right? Which is, in a company, for instance, there is management, but you can call the management your parents if you're a child, or if, a partner, I don't know. But there is many reasons, many stages that do that. So basically what it's saying is that all our behaviors, the bad and good behaviors, including the failures, are a consequence of very complex interactions in the system, of our community, our peers, our family. And I think that's a very nice way to approach all problems in transport because it's not just given responsibility to one stakeholder, but many other stakeholders in the system. So this is Rotterdam, where I live now. And I was cycling around here. I love to cycle now. And then there is this big billboard there. So I was cycling and I saw the billboard and I fall, and that was the story. I've done research on this before, but there was no research on cyclists. And I found that people that look at billboards crash. Now, let's talk about this. And please say something. I didn't come to Korea just to speak. Let's analyze this. So the problem was that I, of course, fall from my bike. So who else is responsible of that situation besides me by looking at the billboard? So I'll help you with the first slide. The equipment, of course. I mean, the bike didn't have AI that protects me. I don't know how, but also there was this billboard around that perhaps if it wasn't there, I will not fall and do things. So what do you think about, for example, let's talk about this, about companies. What company would be responsible as well? Question. Yeah, well, who is responsible, right? It's about looking at responsibility of the behavior.
Is it like a tree that starting from the government policy? Starting from
Okay, let's start with the government. What do you think the government could do better to prevent my fall?
if that's a bike, is it operating from the government or
No, I bought it. Yeah,
just my own bike?
yeah, my own way.
Then I believe the government policy would be a much big factor.
The government what?
I think the government policy would be the significant factor that would cause the failure. Rather, it's like for example, like the bike itself made it dangerous, or like
Yeah, I mean something that I'm gonna highlight about it. It's a good point because of course if the government wants me to cycle, I mean they need to provide safe infrastructure, right? I love these governments that are like, oh yes, we need sustainable transport, walk more, cycle more. Where are the new byways? Where are the new pedestrian facilities? Don't ask things that you are not providing infrastructure for. But by the way, I'm just gonna say, this is Rotterdam, which is the most cycling place in the world. The best infrastructure is not perfect, by the way, which is very interesting that even the place that we imagine people cycle the most, there's a lot of issues. So in this case, I think the government is doing a good job with the infrastructure. But what about with the billboard companies? Do you think that the government has some fault, the fact, at least the city, for allowing this huge billboard there that is as big as a building?
I think a lot of places in Europe, including
Yep.
Netherlands, there was square plaza places.
Yeah.
So essentially where a lot of people gather and talk and socialize. So the problem is actually kind of the pedestrians and bicycle users are kind of mixed up in the same place. Second is actually visibility actually kind of distract. I mean, this kind of billboard, the commercial, it's actually kind of distract the visibility of the bicycle users. So I think that would be something. So I think there are a lot of different interest groups that involve this.
Yeah.
For example, the building owners and commercial company and the government could just put a kind of provision about restricting the visibility
Yeah.
of the bike users.
And by the way, I never thought of the building owners, but the building owners also has
They earn money.
some responsibility, right? Because they're earning money. Why? But they're earning money distracting people. By the way, there's a lot of billboards here in Korea, so I was comment. There should be some legislation as well. And they're quite rare in the Netherlands now. In Australia, it's a challenge. They still want to put more. But the fact, the research is they are distracting. And I found it to be very interesting because the governments are very quick in blame all drivers for using the phone while driving, but they're also, let's not worry about external distractions. They're giving us money. That's fine. But it's not fair, I think, the fact that there are other distractions that are as dangerous and they don't do the same effort. Let's concentrate on one. So there's something there about policymakers that I don't fully understand. And I have been working for many years in changing policy. Some places successfully, other places not so much. But I think raising awareness of these issues is very important because policy is not perfect. And I think it could be always improved. And of course, there is other stakeholders. The building managers, of course, will be responsible because in their decision of making money, they decided putting the billboard and as such, end up somehow it might fall, you know? Anything else? Any other comment? Something? Do you like the billboard or so? I don't know.
I think billboard is inevitable, right? You cannot like remove them, or you can just reconstruct the bike lane.
I mean, there is, yeah. I mean, you will say the same with the fonts, right? It's inevitable. You cannot just remove them. What we need is, I mean, the solution is we need research, right, to know what is safe and what is not. And there is some research, and I'm not banning all of them. I'm asking the electronic ones to be removed. So if this is static, not a big issue. The problem is the billboard that change all the time because people are expecting more message, so they spend longer looking at it. And I have a lot of trouble with that. Also, the advertising industry sells things, and they want you to be engaged with it. So they put videos. They do a lot of things, you know, sound and etc. So there are things that should not be okay. So what I'm asking is research, so we can have clear guidelines and be able to offer government, cities, and everyone, this is correct and this is not. You know, so we can have that. But the fact is, the industry is not funding that research because it's money. The government is busy fighting funds, which I don't know why. And there is a lot of gap in between, right? But I think the whole point of this model for you is to think always that look systemically above all your problems, because you will find a lot of the reasons why the world behaves in that way by doing that. I take a whole semester teaching how to use this, but this is just for you to think a little bit about that. And if you today learn one thing, it's about looking at the system and who else is responsible. It's a very nice exercise for your research and your topic of work because it will open your mind to other solutions and possibilities. Okay, so, and the second thing that I'm suggesting is first looking at the system, but the second thing is looking at interactions. This is very simple. So there is two ways as humans that we interact with the system. The first one is physical interactions, which is we sit down there and touch the world, basically. And then psychosocial, which is with our mind we think about things, right? So I was in a plane yesterday, and of course, you know, if the seats are uncomfortable, this is going to be a really bad trouble. So, but this is also fault of the engineers because they design the physical world as well. So that's important, you know, and this is a science called anthropometrics, which I've done a lot of work on this. I started in Colombia actually doing work on this because a lot of Colombian, I don't know if you guys know, but Colombia and South Korea are really good friends because there was a lot of industry and exchanges. So we buy a lot of machinery from South Korea and Colombia. The problem is Colombians are physically very different to South Korea. So that ergonomically, it doesn't fit. And there is a lot of very old machines that are designed for, I think Colombia tends to be shorter in some regions as well. So the machine is too big or doesn't really fit, or it was for American standards. And it produces a lot of problems because if a machine is poorly designed, you can end up with pain and occupational risk, et cetera, et cetera. So I was doing research on if the measurements of Colombians fit the machines that we're selling and trying to develop the standard for the right fit, because right fit is very important for work. That's called anthropometrics. It's a whole art, basically. And then there is also the psychosocial aspect. You know, I will hate if I'm in the plane and there is the feet flying there. You know, that will also ruin my experience. You know, I could be in a beautiful seat, having the best time, but if the feet is there, I will probably not enjoy myself so much, okay? So I think it's important to consider that there are the two aspects, and the two are important. And I want you to think about it, because when we design systems, a lot of people stay just on the It looks nice, it's comfortable, ergonomically correct, but then look at the community and you will find a lot of other issues to think about. Is that clear? Anybody likes the feet there?
That is hands.
That's a feet. Yeah, that's a feet. Who wants the feet? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I just want you to think about it, right? That we need to optimize the two things. And there's a very clear example of how the physical world is important, but also the social element will determine the impact. If everyone starts putting their feet up there, I'm sure less people will fly in the same conditions, which probably that would be great for the environment. So it's good intervention. But just look at those complexities. It's not so simple. Okay, is that clear? So we look at two things. Consider the psychological things that make us enjoy the system, the physical elements, but also how the behavior is responsible. I think those three little messages are very nice, and I hope you think about it. Yeah, I don't know where I put in Spanish, but it's Spanish. Any comments about it? Anything that triggered your mind? No? Says. Okay, please.
So I think aesthetically, people feel like stressed out or uncomfortable by watching something on the street or flight, plane, wherever you take on. Then does it really kind of really change their, I would say, perception to how do they behave, or I would say the safety. I would say, because you brought up a lot of different types of the perception issues, and like something actually kind of humans and or public pedestrians, bike users, actually kind of or the passengers on the flight. They see something and the visibility, and they disrupt or distract. I would say their visibility, and that causes actually kind of some safety issues, or uncomfortableness. So I was wondering, why does this kind of visibility issue really matter in different types of situation and contextual
Okay.
differences?
Look, I think in everything is because I've done work a lot in public transport. It's something that I really care because I truly believe, I mean, it's not a belief anymore, it's the safest way of transportation. I found all these aspects are very important, right? You can have fantastic transit, but if people cannot pay for it, it's too expensive, nobody uses it. But also, if it's perceived as not safe by people, they will not use it anyway. It becomes important when you think about how people are going to use it, I think the most. The issue is you cannot think about people at the end of designing it. Because what I'm trying to show you here is if you're going to design something, bring the humans from the beginning. And that's what we call human-centered design, is thinking about the humans. And it doesn't mean that you need to please everyone because it's impossible. There is a philosophy called universal design. You can accommodate for everyone's needs. There's so many. But at least you can do a good work to develop strategies to support as many people as possible. It sounds very self-defeating because, of course, you cannot fix everyone. But you can do it in a way that will create better good for everyone, which is what we're trying to do. It's also important from the other way, right? As an engineers, there is a lot of biases as well. We have our own biases. And what I consider important, it may be different for other people. And I think I was lucky because I grew up in Latin America and then moved to been living around the world in many places as well. And I think I can reflect a lot about things because somebody mentioned about experiences. It's so important because we grow up in some environments already. So what I consider safe, it will be very different what Nicole considers safe, right? And I think it's also being open-minded about all those differences and how interact with people. because the world is becoming more international, more global as well in some places. And that means there's more complexity and diversity, which is good. I want people to also experience different ways of thinking, but also I want people to do what we want them to do, which is engage in safe behavior and more sustainability. So I don't have a clear answer for you, but I think the best way for, the best way.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, all these kind of, physio-social environments really affect the human behavior, and the humans actually kind of have a different perception of the environment. So there was some strong interaction between the environment and people. And then so I was wondering, I mean, we talk about safety issues. And so people who say that this is a safe environment, this is an unsafe environment. And so I think it's quite difficult to judge which one would be a safe environment or not.
Okay.
But,
I have something to add to that. In my responsible risk management program in TU Delft, we have learned to live with that issue there, which is there is this thing about objective safety, which is number of crashes or near misses or whatever you want to use as a metric. And there is the perceived safety. And I think we have come out to the agreement that the two of them are important. That we cannot have safe objectively if we cannot make people feel safe objectively. But we don't want them to feel safe too much neither. So it's also about balance, right? Because if people feel too safe, they will start taking risk. And the next part would show that. So for me, the lesson here is, sadly, none of you is going to be able to build the best transport system alone. It's about working together. So if you are doing something, bring the social sciences. And I think that's what I really like my program of research in TU Delft, because I'm in the Faculty of Policy and Management. I don't sit in the Faculty of Civil Engineering because my research left civil engineering a long time ago. The people of civil engineering come to us to work and develop things because we are the social people that basically think about society, but are also engineers. And the best advice that I have is open your program of research to work collaboratively with social science researchers, psychologists, and economists as well. They have a lot of knowledge about choice behavior and many things. I think the world needs that, and that good research is happening in that space. I don't think alone engineering can do a lot of things. At the same way that I cannot do a lot of technology development work anymore, I will find experts to help me, right? So we need to work together. It's not about being independent. But as I said, you cannot save everyone. You need to make choices, and I think that's where even the people from ethics and philosophy have a lot to contribute to that, and very nice, yeah. Any questions? Well, no? No, please.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking sometimes, what is our duty as what kind of expert or what we have to do, because let's suppose something will happen very soon, the relationship between humans and some other objects. And so what is our duty, or what we have to do? Like, do we have to make humans change their behavior, or do we have to, move the billboard to other places or something like that? Because I was involved in one of the smart city projects some years ago. At the time, my job was to design the traffic safety facility, well to put and how that shape. And then we actually analyzed these human generations' behavior, and then that was like looking down and walking. That was the thing. Then we have to so in that situation, our job was to design the traffic facility, and then do we have to put it on the surface of the roadway, like traffic signs, and then all the warning signs should be on surface, or we have to say like humans, okay, you had up, and you have to see the board, and then you have to pay attention to the board. So what we have to do, we make them change their behavior, or we just follow their rule and then put it on the surface.
I mean, something about changing behavior is when I say change behavior, I always say, I think about changing the system, right? So putting the technology is change behavior, it's making infrastructure, because as I say, humans contribute very little to their behavior. It's all designed by the culture, by experiences, by policy. You know, some people will not use the phone because they need to pay $200. You know, that's also important. The question here is how to optimize it, really. So be aware that people are gonna misuse the system from the scratch. There will be people that will do the things incorrectly. There are ways to study that, and that's why we have experimental research, and people. That's why it's so important to do the work. You know, it's not just theoretically imagine this beautiful thing, but also you want to let humans play with it. That's why the big companies in the world have focus groups, and they give people funds and beta testers and to play and find stuff. Like they do it, and they're the most technology advanced places in the world. They have psychologists working with them. You know, I wonder why. I mean, I do know why. A lot of universities are also organized by faculties. You know, they have the civil engineering faculty and all civil engineers. That's wrong, because if companies don't work in that way neither. You know, if you look where the science and technology is happening, innovation, maybe scale, they don't have that division of, okay, this is the department of, I don't know, cellular technology. They have groups that work on, so it's very important to do the testing. It's recognizing that you want to optimize behavior always. It's an outcome too. It's not just about delivering a service. It's about delivering mobility for people and delivering safety and delivering well-being as well. And that's important. Now, something that you also need to consider is, it's always a red flag when somebody comes to you and say, I want to improve the safety of this road. That means that they're only thinking about safety. And the road means so many other things than just safety. You know, for some people is their house, their home, you know. For other people is a sustainability problem. Those trees that you need to cut perhaps are very important for the community. Perhaps they have a cultural value. I remember a lot of big infrastructural projects in Australia have been stopped because indigenous people of Australia consider some trees as sacred. Nobody thought about it at the beginning and paid hundreds of millions of dollars for firms to design projects, but nobody ever thought that the trees were important for the community. And the trees were untouchable. By the way, that's taxpayers' money, it's our money. They should do it from the beginning. And I think that's the lesson, right? It's about knowing that behavior is an outcome that we need to optimize as well. The problem is, as an engineers, we don't have the tools to do it. We need to bring the people that can help us to do that. As the same way that big companies do as well. That makes sense? It's too crazy? Please.
I think this also means that if I think there's two solutions. First one is change their behavior and force them to do that, and the other one is just follow their habit and build something for them based on their original habit. Right?
I mean, what we have been done so far is the first option. The second option is what I'm proposing. Yeah, because the first option is what we're doing, and we have failed. That's $1.3 million every year. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of policies today in many countries are about don't do that. But, you know, when I'm told don't do that, doesn't work. You know?
So just
Yeah.
prefer to like follow their original behavior.
Yeah, but sometimes, and look at what it means, right? Because if the original behavior is that you are addicted to your phone, so the problem is not that you're using the phone while driving. The problem is we need to find a way to manage our relationship with technology. That's what the health system needs to come to work. It's not the phone use, I have been querying in my research a lot, it's not just a transport problem. When I want to develop policy about phone use while driving, for instance, that I do a lot, I want to see the health system here and say how they're going to support the people that are having maladaptive relationships with that, right? So that's what I'm seeing. It's being more systemic, not too simplistic about it. Okay? Okay, now that we're talking about solutions, because it's where it's going, let's finish this. So how can we design systems? And okay, this is another case. Who drives here? Raise your hand if you drive. Oh, a lot of people, yeah. I mean, it's not to shame them, but don't drive. Okay, so who gets bored in traffic sometimes? Okay, what do you do when you get bored?
Music,
Music? Yeah,
open window,
open the window. Why? The air?
just take a fresh air.
Is it bored or is it sleepy?
Oh yeah, it's confused, sleepy before. But well, generally I am listening to music and or doesn't have to be, but sometimes YouTube or something.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. It's not the worst thing I've seen, but yeah. Who else? Anything else? No? Okay. So yeah, all of those answers are correct. So people, of course, use the phone a lot now when they get bored. And I think that's important to look at it because you can also have the billboards, right? That are entertaining sometimes. So it's understand the brain, the human brain in the first place. You know, we have a measure of something called workload, which is what we do. And then if it's too little, we're going to find ways to cover it because we always want to be here in the middle, an acceptable level, right? To be engaged in a task. So if you're bored, of course, you're going to start doing weird things that you shouldn't be doing, like using the phone. But there is a problem if you have too much on your plate because that means that you cannot cope with a task. And driving is a complex task as well. That makes sense? It's like when there is exams, you know, if you have too many exams. That's where I think universities also have responsibility to separate exams sufficiently so people can perform. It's not just the students' fault. And it sounds revolutionary, right? This is not very clear, but basically what I want to show is a good way to think about optimizing behavior is always think in terms of demands, like the things that we have to do, and think about capability, which is the resources that we have to do things. Very simple concept that, you know, is actually magical. I'm going to show you an example here. We can demonstrate this empirically. I'm going to show some of my research in these guys here, which, by the way, I know there is a lot of research about this in Korea. I've read a lot of papers about this. Really, really good research, actually. Very nice ethnographic study. So I'm very excited to be here for that reason because I'm very interested in delivery riders. It's something that I grow interested in Australia because a lot of Colombians went to Australia to work as delivery riders, students, and they were being killed on the roads. And so I took this very personal topic as a way for me to do research and advocacy. So this is a study in Vietnam that I did with a colleague of mine, Dewey. And what we're trying to show in this project is, okay, we're going to demonstrate to the policymakers that road safety compliance, which is basically, you know, following the rules, depends on the job demands of how busy are these delivery riders, as well as the resources, which is all the resources that they have to meet those demands. And the theory behind it says that, you know, if you have too many demands in your life, and very little resources, you will suffer something called a strain, burnout, fatigue. All of those things are related. So we want always to have enough resources to meet the demands in order to not get strained. So what we did is, theoretically, we proposed the following. Very simple story, by the way. If you send this to a journal, everyone will say, like, oh, that's so simple. But it's very impactful in policy. Just pay attention to this. Because I was like, okay, but let's hypothesize here that the demands and the resources are linked with attitudes, but also with compliance. So we added only two variables to a very well-known theory. Nothing very revolutionary. And we control for a bunch of things, right? Income and education, etc. So these two things, it was to connect road safety with it. And the reason is I wanted to demonstrate that the way these organizations have designed the system of delivery was influencing behavior of riders. The riders are the ones that get penalized by the police. So if they do an infraction, if they go too fast, if they crash, they're the ones that pay the consequences, not these companies. So I wanted to demonstrate that that's not fair because it's because of this way the job was designed that they engage on those behaviors. So with the structural model, you can read the paper, it has all the stats there, great model, and look what we found. We found that more demands, naturally, as theoretically expected, results in job strain. More resources reduces the job strain, of course. And then look at the links here with road safety compliance. So if you have more strain, which means you are tired of this work and you're fatigued and burned out, you will comply less with road safety. The same with the resources. The resources will protect you. So the more resources you have, the more road safety compliance you have. And, And with this paper, I was very excited. 550 riders in Vietnam. I was in Da Nang and I think Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi. Ho Chi Minh, yes. We connected those and demonstrated that there is a link between the way their job is designed and the road safety. This completely changed the narrative because everyone was blaming those riders. Oh, they're so bad. They are the worst drivers everywhere. They don't respect the signs. Of course they don't because they're obligated to do so. That's the way the work is designed. And I think it's important to be a little bit compassionate about all road users. I had some interviews, conflict with other road users. So I also decided to do some interviews in Australia. This is bike riders. And this is Australia, by the way, which is a generally safe country with a lot of protections. Could be better. So a lot of the riders, I love to do qualitative research as well because I think it's important to ask people how they feel. I mean, the whole point of human factors is looking at people, so ask them things. And they were saying like, okay, look, a problem is that a lot of restaurants take very long time producing these foods and then they need to deliver it. They don't pay for that. So other deliveries penalized if the restaurants take longer than they were supposed to take. If they have a crash, for instance, they don't know what to do because they were from Colombia or other countries. So they didn't know how to contact, which is very bad, right? If you have an accident and you don't know what to do or how to call the ambulance, it's a bit problematic, I think. They also found that the equipment is not adequate to load for long hours. So they give some equipment, some lights for the bikes, but they, of course, only last 4 hours, I think it is. And then they do long shifts. So how are you supposed to work with equipment if it doesn't work for the whole shift? And of course, the app, which very annoying, is very distracting because, of course, they need to start looking at it all the time for the maps, for other notifications. So they also experience violence. A lot of car drivers hate them and physically attack them, including abuse and harassment. There was also experience of violence and harassment. This is sexual harassment as well, and racial harassment in Australia. So, you know, of course these people are stressed for all of that terrible environment they're experiencing, and companies don't do much about it, okay? So this is just an example of how to use human factors to design things, because now I can go to the companies and say, okay, let's reduce the demands. Let's pay them well. Let's increase the support systems that they do. Let's do this activity now to explain this a little bit. This is a taxi. Are the taxis here? Yeah, there are taxis here. Okay. Tell me what is risky, red or blue? Raise your hand if you say red. Raise your hand if you say red. Why are you raising your hand? What is more risky? Yeah, more dangerous. Yeah. What will result in a crash more likely? Yeah. What is more likely to result in a crash? Raise your hand in red. Yeah, I really hope it's red. Why are you though? Of course, if you work more hours, that means that you are more tired. And so, demands is measured in time. Taxi drivers usually work 7 days a week, surprisingly. So, of course, if it's harder to make a decent wage, you will probably be more tired and fatigued. So more demands means more safety. I don't want a driver that works 15 hours a day, 7 days. I don't want anyone that works 7 days a week, but I will be better with this one than this one, right? Now this one, Nicole cannot participate. Yep. Raise your hand if you think red. Okay, raise your hand in blue then. Okay, more people. Why? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, this is the old technology. Before it was radio, and now it's all. So yeah, Nicole, can you explain why she got? Depends on the demands, yes. So of course, if it's visual, it has more demands because it's easier just to listen in than listening to the sound and looking at the screen. Especially if you are not an adult, older driver, it's more difficult for you to do that. Indeed, we show that in the paper. So as you can see, the papers also have implications for policy, and you just learn to understand that. And yeah, this is a paper that Nicole and I wrote together a long time ago, though.
Really?
Yeah. I think so. I can't remember.
Go for a very long time.
Yeah. But it was a very interesting question. Nobody ever thought about it because, of course, the industry is happy to put more tech, more screens, and more AI or whatever they want to do. But they never thought that it was actually more risky to change to an app that keep the old radio. Nobody ever thought about it, This is another case of how demands can be different, but worse for people. Okay, there's another one here. Which one is more risky? Raise your hand if you think blue. Sorry? Your boss. Yeah. Your boss, yeah. Yeah. I don't know who's called the boss of the taxi driver. The main taxi driver, the boss, yeah. Raise your hand if you think blue is more risky. I mean, if you are driving well, if you are being nice driver, if you keep the car clean.
Is it real-time feedback or afterward feedback?
Afterward, yeah. But ongoing, right? Like all the time. So raise your hand if in red is risky. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, don't be so shy about it. It's fine. Because feedback is part of the resources that you have. Feedback is important because it helps us to check our behavior. And if feedback is done correctly, we will learn and become better. That's the whole point to coming to university. To receive feedback and be part of that. So, of course, all those feedback systems are very important for safety as well. Okay? So I just want you to look at this because by considering demands and capabilities, you can design better systems for everyone and change behavior, as you call it, or optimize behavior. It's a way to do it, okay? And very simple concept, but hopefully it will help you to understand the world and see why it's so important to develop human systems, not just systems. Okay, this is the theory originally, so just to acknowledge, it's called the GDR theory, and it works with job resources, job demands. There are resources like support, autonomy, feedback. Even having friends in the workplace is protective. Research found that if you have friends, you are safer. Of course, because you want to protect your friends too, right? You are in a community, you care about things. But yeah, the theory can be modified and used for many transport issues. Okay. Oh, important. What about if your car is equipped with increased automation? What do you think? Let's pretend that you are driving an autonomous car with autopilot. So let's think about that in terms of demands. What it means to have automation. Reduce demands. So what happens when you have very little demands? No, Nicole, someone else. Oh my gosh. I'm going, you guys think? Anyone?
Does it mean like automation means all like autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, could be an autonomous vehicle, yeah.
So that would increase or decrease accident
No, demands.
the demand.
What do you think? It will increase or decrease?
It could increase more demand.
How?
Because if there's a lot of automation, if the automation levels get higher, then non-drivers could be on the road. So if you don't have a driving license, if you want to go somewhere, you can just take the car and just go.
So there will be less demands because you need to do less things. Yeah.
I mean, so like the current drivers are already on the road, right?
Yeah.
So the non-drivers could be added to the existing drivers. So like I think it could increase the demand.
I mean, it will increase the demands for the human drivers.
I think it confused with the driving demand and the travel demand, right? It's talking
Yes.
about the travel demand
I see.
is increasing. We're talking about the driving demand.
Driving demands, yeah. Yeah. But that's a good point because if there is more cars on the road, the human drivers will need to pay more attention because there's more things there doing things, right? So the more information, more demands. So kind of was a good idea. Any other comment? Are the Teslas here in Korea? The autonomous ones?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, okay. In Australia, they don't have them. So, I mean, they started very recently. But, and can be used in autonomous?
I think so. Let me ask Professor Hickey.
Okay. Just to know.
That's the oldest one.
All right, yeah. Yeah, because in the Netherlands, it's not allowed to use the autonomous model.
Only on the highways.
Only on the highways? Okay. So, do you think it makes it easier to drive the highway?
I guess, yes.
Do you all agree with that?
Depends on the AI trust, right?
I mean, depends how good it is. If it's really bad, you probably need to pay attention to it anyway.
I've heard that it is necessary to check the automation works well sometimes.
Yeah, is that easier? Would you think that that's easier or more difficult than just driving yourself?
I think it makes comfortable driving
Yeah.
compared to
Okay. So that means that people will have more spare capacity, right? Which means it will end up people doing other things. So I did a study about it. And I was looking in Australia, I interviewed drivers of all ages. And I was very interested on how they were using automation on the road. So this is one of the comments that I got. This is just a very basic type of automation, which is cruise control. It's been around for 10 years or more. So because of the constant speed, this woman said, I know that there is a safe distance between the car in front of me and the car and my car, basically. Sometimes I check if there is something stuck on my teeth. So she wouldn't do that if she had to manage the speed herself. Just because the automation appeared, she started doing more distraction. This is an unintended consequence of that. And if you think about demands of resources, I've been trying to show you, that means that we need to also manage the demands here because just because you remove the demand doesn't mean everyone is safe. People will cover those demands again. And of course, you can also have the other thing that the system is really bad. So this is a blind spot monitor. You know what is that? That if you are changing lanes, it will beep if there is a car there. So it's quite distracting, this driver said, a female as well, 35. It's quite loud, and I think it's unnecessary. There is a lot of false alarms. So the thing is distracting, which means it's increasing the demand. So because the engineers did such a bad job, not looking at humans, they end up increasing demands, which is also very bad. So the relationship of systems and human behavior is very, very linked in terms of demands and capabilities. And I think it's important. That's how I approach most of my research these days, because we need to design a world that people can meet the demands for. Okay, so I finished the 3 things that I wanted to discuss today. I hope you have learned something about human factors and how to account for them. Remember, behavior is systemic. It's also physical and cognitive, but also think about the demands, and in that way you can design a world that prevents harm. Okay, this is the first part. Any comments about the presentation?